Hey everyone, my name is Nate and I'm also known as DJ Natural Nate. That is obviously my DJ name and my production name. And I just want to go over a topic that I just cannot find a lot on the internet. I have seen a lot of bad reviews on the new Roland's sampling capabilities. And I just kind of wanted to go through a few things on. You can see I have the old Roland Fantom G6, and I have made, I don't know, maybe 340 songs between the Phantom F and G6, and some good, some bad. But the one thing that I fell in love with the Roland capabilities was their sampling capabilities. And so I'm going to go just a little bit backwards in order for us to go a little bit forwards here. And so on my old Phantom G6, I was a huge sample junkie. I'm still a huge sample junkie. In this world of dance music and electronic music, sampling is a pretty big, crucial part of making this music. And I'll give you an example. Can have a major producer ask me to do a remix, and of course they're going to send me probably WAV files or some type of stems, and I'm going to need to be able to upload this into a DAW or a sampler. And the one thing that I loved about Roland was the simple fact that this worked like an MPC or just an amazing sampling device. And as you can see, there's 16 pads here. And what's special about this is with the 16 pads, I am able to assign 1 through 16 samples per pad. Now, if I have 16 of those times 16, I mean, that's a couple hundred of samples that I'm able to use. And you can see here, have these designated into different sections: beat samples, midpoints, sweeps. I mean, I can make this pad sampler do whatever I want it to do. And so for me, I really fell in love with this because if I hand wrote a song, I needed some inspiration, or I'm having a hard time writing a bass line or a percussion, I can always throw in a sample to one of my songs. And so the one thing about the old Phantom G6 is the simple fact of, look how you're able to set your zones or your mixing board up with 16 tracks. And so if you look really close, I have each one of these tracks as basically a sample pad. And so let's see, what do I have here? So I have a synth 3 sample on this. So if I just go through the menu here, each one of these is loaded up the way I needed them to be. So synth sample 1. So just an amazing, amazing, amazing feature that the Phantom G6 had. I've been able to just write an immense amount of songs this way. And with that many samples loaded up into here, I can sometimes squeeze out between 1 to 5 songs just loading this up this way. And again, it's just, I love the way I can just go through any of this. As far as the songs, you can see how the songs are written. It's very easy to understand what bar I'm on. I can overlay samples on any of these, and it's just a beautiful structure that they had. The other cool part about the samples is you had quite a few variations that you could do. You could actually put some effects on them. It wasn't a whole bunch that you could do with it, but you could go in and do, reverbs, and you could do tone pans. You can right on the spot just go into one of the samples and be able to mess around with them very easily and get it adjusted to your song. The other thing is I could use as many samples as I want into a song, and the Roland would not slur. So I'll just push play real quick. guys get the point. But yeah, that is a song completely made with samples on 16 tracks in the mixer, and just pretty seamless. One thing that I was experiencing is the age of this keyboard, and I was having a hard time recording some of these songs out. I don't know if the processor might be going bad, but my songs would start out strong on the recording, and then it would seem like my beats were fading out a little bit in the middle, and then getting strong again at the end. So I just think age has caught up with this. I have just written so much stuff on here. I will say right now, Rolands are not the easiest thing to just get into. You are going to have a lot of trial and error to make these work for you, but especially the Fantom G, though, if you stick with it, there is almost nothing that you can't do with it in some regards. And I've just been a huge fan. And so just kind of do just a little tiny overview of how I was using this, especially with the amazing sampling capabilities. I just wanted to kind of go over that before going to the new Roland Fantom. And I tell you what, here's going to be the first question that somebody's going to ask, especially if they're samplers. Can I write a song on this keyboard using samples, or even using samples in a song, or just a sample song? And the bottom line is going to be no. No, you can't. This keyboard is so absolutely flawed in the sample capability that I just can't understand why Roland would have something this technical and something that worked so greatly that they wouldn't integrate it to this, and maybe, you know, add a couple of the things that maybe the sampling was lacking in the Fantom G, but they totally went 900 degrees backwards on this, and it's just flipped around in circles. And I just I don't want to bash Roland, because I love Roland products. Again, I've been a Roland fan for many years, but I tell you what, I decided to upgrade my Fantom G to this. I waited a while. I kept reading a lot of the bad reviews on this, and then Roland decides to put out a firmware of 2.0. Sounds exciting, and sounded like they added a few things that were cool, and you know, the keyboard looks amazing. I mean, look at this beautiful spaceship. I mean, it is absolutely gorgeous. I mean, they even highlight these pads. They even highlight it like, hey, this is going to be the best thing ever. And I tell you what, it's been absolutely agonizing, and the worst thing that I've ever had to endure here. I just bought this a month and a half ago, and you know, I am a novice to this keyboard, but for a novice to just come in here and find so many flaws, and to be able to tell you that this sampling pad is basically worthless is another thing here. So I did go online. It took me forever to even figure out how to even integrate the sample pads into the new pattern structure, not song structure, but pattern structure. And of course, you have 16 tracks that you can, or zones is what they call them now. You have 16 tracks, and each one of these are designated to basically the first 8. And if you look very closely, I have on zone 8 here, I have my pad. And notice I only have one pad in one zone. And so if you go into your menu here, you will see scene edit, and you will need to go into your scene edit. And if you look really closely here, you only have one zone that you can put this sample pad to, and that's it. So there is a huge downfall to this. And so what happens is, if you're putting it in one zone and you're trying to make all these patterns with your samples, you're going to have to keep overlaying the samples and overlaying the samples and overlaying the samples into one pattern, And at that point, it just seems like this processor does not work very well with multiple samples, especially into one pattern. Why, Roland? Why would you do that? Now, one of the other things about the sample pad is you have 16 sample pads, but you can only upload to 4 of them, which is 64 samples. And why you can't upload to all 16 pads is beyond me. So they took away 3/4 of the functions of how many samples you can actually upload into this keyboard, which is very, very disheartening, especially for sample junkies and people that just have a fun time, making their songs just strictly out of samples. This is not a sampling machine anymore. This is more of a trigger pad, maybe for a live performance, maybe being able to hit one sample at a time, but it does get worse here. And so right here, I'll see if I can play this. Let me see. So if you notice, I have that one hit and I have the women vocal, and I've had to overlay the samples in one pattern.
In the light of love, the darkness drifts away. In the light of love.
Okay, so you guys get the point. And what's redundant about this is if you have a percussion, let me see, here's a I can only use that in one portion of the song. I cannot keep layering just that over the song whatsoever. And so what happens is you have to start overlaying all of your samples over and over, especially if they're percussion, into one pattern. So right there's 3 samples going at the same time on one pattern.
If the world was ending, would you stay with me tonight? In the
So what's going to happen is if I keep layering samples on samples on samples in each one of those patterns, I don't know if I'm saying it the right way, but the processor is not going to like this. The songs are going to start stuttering. Your samples are going to start stuttering, and you're going to run into some major issues like I did. So I did handwrite a few of my own, just a really quick pattern to see if I could get a sample to match up. And I just wanted to see if I could match samples to a quick little song and create a song and export this song just to see if this works. I didn't put a lot of work into this or anything, guys, but I'll just push play. Let's see.
if the world was ending, if the world was ending, would you stay with me tonight? If the world was ending, would you stay with me tonight? In the light of love, the darkness drifts away. In the light of love.
So you guys could hear a few multiple samples going over to my little handwritten riff that I made there. But again, that's multiple samples in one pattern. And again, this is going to bite you at the end of this. And also, you're not going to be able to do it at all. And so we're going to kind of go into this portion of it. And I'm going to go into, so these are my patterns, and I have to make these patterns to fit into a grouping. So grouping would be here, which is kind of a pain a little bit in my opinion. It's really hard to see what you have in there unless you go into a microscope. Some of it just is not very user-friendly. And so here's my grouping, and then from grouping you have to tell it, well, I want group 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it can be a little pain in the neck. But the one thing that I learned, especially with a sampler, is the simple fact: the longer your song, the more this song is going to stutter, because it's not going to have the processing to the samples in that one zone, which is zone 8, and it is going to drag, it's going to lag, and it's just going to cause some serious issues. And so I'm going to play this because this is a song, just a quick song, if you want to call it that I put together just to see if I could make the sample song, just to see if I could even just make this keyboard work. But I need you to pay attention because you're going to hear my samples, and eventually you're going to start hearing this stuttering out. So I'll just go ahead and play this for a minute. Bear with me. So you can hear a couple samples there. This other one's going to have a percussion sample that comes in. So here's a sample and my riff that I made up. So if you heard that tick, it is already starting to tick. These samples are not flowing with the actual song, and the processor is stuttering. So here is that pattern that I showed you guys a little while ago. Okay, so I'm going to stop it here. I don't want to bore you guys to death with this, but you could hear it in the beginning of this song starting to stutter. And again, the longer I let this play, the more it's going to stutter and the samples aren't going to match up. And again, the longer the song, the more this has an issue. And the reason why it was important for me to play this for you is to go back to my point to you that you cannot use the new Roland Fantom as a sampler in any of your songs. And I'm going to prove it to you. So the thing about the Roland is I bought this as a workstation. I bought it as the recording device. I bought it, basically as my DAW. I don't want to be behind a computer, and I don't want to use a computer like that. I want to get a little bit more hands-on with my songs, and so that's why I've stayed with Roland. I've had a really fun time with it, but I am going to show you in Roland that you cannot record a song with your samples, and this is absolutely heartbreaking. And Roland, you need to pay attention to this because here's how they tell you to do it. You have to hit sampling. So this is even weirder. So on this one here, it has a separate sampler that actually records. So let me go right here. So here's the sampling. Now I can go to resampling, but this isn't going to the pad. This has nothing to do with the pads or anything. And so on the new Roland, to do your resampling, you have to do it into one of the pads, which means not only did you lose a pad space, but now you have to actually record it into the pad. Here's the pad sample. And so I have a designated empty slot on 14. And so the reason why I played that song for you and for you to hear it a little bit stutter is so that you could hear the samples that were in there. But pay real close attention, especially Roland. I'm going to hit sampling. And so I have it in keyboard mode, and I'm going to hit an auto trigger. And so right there's my pad designation. I'm in sampling just like Roland tells you to. You got to resample your song into it. That way you can turn it into a WAV file, basically. But let's pay attention real close. Get ready. Look what just happened to the pads. They have all turned off, which means I have no sampling capability into the song that I just wrote and recording out. I'll let this play for a minute just to prove it. And really don't need to, because right here you can see the pads they're completely dead. So you should be able to hear that percussion that I had in there, which you can't. You should be able to hear the hits, the few little just tiny effects that I had in there, little robotic sound. Oh, here you go, Roland. Did you hear it tick? Did you hear it skip? And I don't have any samples even playing. So right here should be the woman vocal. Gone. All of my samples are gone. So for all of you that have just absolutely been pounding your head against the wall, I can see why. Again, just a month into this keyboard, and I just don't even know what to say at this point. Roland has completely dropped the ball, and I don't even think Roland realizes how bad of a system and keyboard this is. I did find one other flaw, and I do apologize about my phone, guys. This was the only way I could do this and kind of move around a little bit freely, so bear with me here. But let's go to zone 7 here. Okay, so zone 7 is going to be my piano. Okay, so the one thing about this is this is supposed to have an amazing arpeggiator. So when you go and look on Roland videos, they don't really show you how to do the songs with these pieces in it. I noticed that, and there might be a real reason why. So when they talk about the arpeggiator, they're going to tell you to hit a single tone and hit the arpeggiator on. And boy, does this thing work. It works great. Hey, in the single tone, man, it does some amazing things. But you can see I'm in my pattern mode. And we'll just show you that is the real piano. So I have a arpeggiator. I do have the arpeggiator on, and then watch. Nothing. Absolutely zero. Nothing. Flawed? Majorly? Yes. As of right now, I've got a $3,500 keyboard that is a paperweight due to the fact that I'm a sampling guy. I have believed in Roland because of its other amazing sampling attributes to its older keyboards, and I'm absolutely heartbroken. As of right now, this is absolutely useless. The other thing about when you go into the sampling, the other flaw that I found, just real quick, now that I thought about it, is so you can go into Wave Edit and you can put the effects on, and guess what? There is no effects. There's none. There is zero effects. Even though it says the effect switch is on, you can scroll through all of your effects on here and nothing. You can see. Look, we'll put it on anything. I mean, let's see. You should be able to hear a delay, right? Okay, so delay is on. Let's preview it. Do you hear a delay? Yep, me neither. The effect switch is on. There is no effect capability to your samples on this. There is no really anything to these samples. It is just a raw sample that went in. You can normalize it. That's about it. But they took literally all of the sampling capabilities and putting in effects and changing them around, pitch tones. I mean, it is just absolutely sad comparably to the Phantom G6. And like I said, I mean, why in the world, why in the world why would you do that? So, uh, uh, patch edit. I can do so many different things with the G6. I mean, there are just so many options that I can do with just that one sample, just one sample. Again, it's a little limited on what you can do as far as the effects, but you can still put effects on it. And it's just right at your fingertips, right in the middle of your song. You don't have to do a whole bunch of crazy stuff, opening up the wave editors. You don't have to do, and I am just absolutely heartbroken that Roland has, again, I'm just going to have to try to be nice about it, but has just sincerely dropped the ball on sample fans, sampling producers, and just the keyboard in general. I mean, I just don't know what else to say. And Roland, you really broke my heart. There is a lot of others in forums talking about how bad this system is, how bad the sampler is, and nobody's really got a good video out there. Again, sorry about my phone, but this was the best way that I can do it. And hopefully, this answers some questions to others with the same problems and not knowing where to turn, because there's 100 videos, but there's nothing out there quite like this saying, yeah, this is basically a useless system and a useless keyboard, especially for the sampling guys. Roland, you really dropped the ball.